Odette is the new 5-star Cryo sub DPS coming in version 7.0, and she's also looking to be the best general support for all the stellar reactions in the game. Alongside the new artifact sets and a whole new lineup of weapons, Odette will be a key factor in reshaping the top of the meta and allow these stellar teams to truly deal the highest damage in the game. In this guide, we'll go over the new Stellar-Swirl reaction, as well as her talents and rotations, best weapons, artifacts, teams and constellations, and see how impactful she really is for the new meta, and whether she's a must-pull for you.
Hello, welcome to Genshin Filter, your quick guide for everything Genshin. So let's get started!
Before diving into her kit, we need to talk about the new Stellar-Swirl reaction. To enable the reaction, you of course need a character on the team with the Stellar passive. Odette does have this passive and can enable both Stellar-Conduct and Stellar-Swirl in her teams, but that is not something exclusive to her. The Cryo Traveler and even Sandrone have the same passive and can enable both reactions for the team. And yes, this means Sandrone can now also deal Stellar-Swirl damage, as she also received new Stellar-Swirl scalings in her kit, which is really cool. This passive will also buff the team with up to 14% more Stellar-Swirl and Stellar-Conduct damage based on the character's attack, maxing out at 2000 attack. The way Stellar-Swirl works is that whenever an Animo character swirls Cryo, it will be converted into Stellar-Swirl instead, dealing Animo-type Stellar-Swirl damage. Additionally, when Stellar-Swirl is triggered, a Cryo Vortex will be created on the field and explode after 3 seconds, dealing Cryo-type Stellar-Swirl damage. The Vortex has 2 levels. The more levels it has, the stronger the explosion will be. To level up the Vortex, you need to trigger swirls within its 3-second duration. Triggering under 3 swirls will keep it in its base first level, and the Vortex will do double Stellar-Swirl damage, while triggering 3 or more swirls will triple the damage. When it comes to damage contribution, the Stellar-Swirl formula is pretty much the same as the Lunar Charge and Lunar Crystallize reactions. This means that unlike regular swirl, where the damage only comes from the Animo character, Stellar-Swirl calculates the reaction damage using everyone on the team who contributed to triggering the swirls. The reaction damage also ignores the opponent's defense, scales mostly from the character's attack and EM, and can even crit. And of course, like the Lunar reactions, Stellar-Swirl damage will not scale from talent damage increases, such as normal and charge attacks, skill or burst damage, or from elemental damage buffs.
Just a quick heads up guys, I'm live streaming almost every day, so if you want me to review your account or have any questions, I'll be happy to help you there as well. You can also hit the subscribe and bell button if you want to get notified every time I go live. Cheers!
Odette is a 5-star Cryo Sword user who ascends with crit damage, and her main playstyle is as a strong off-field sub DPS and great buffer to both the Stellar-Conduct and Stellar-Swirl reactions, taking a very similar role to the one Colombina took in her Lunar teams, not being a dedicated support for any specific reaction like Inefa or Linnea, but being more of a general support to all the Stellar reactions and definitely a best-in-slot support in all the new Stellar reactions teams. Her normal and charge attacks are standard sword hits and are basically irrelevant to her playstyle. Her elemental skill is the main part of her kit and where the majority of her damage comes from. She deals an AoE cryo damage hit on cast and then summons a cryo clone of herself that performs a slow dance, dealing AoE cryo damage every 2 seconds, as well as Stellar-Swirl or Stellar-Conduct damage, depending on which one is more dominant in the team. Additionally, for the first 6 seconds after summoning her clone, her skill will change into a special skill, which you can press again to deal a very strong nuke that does both cryo damage and a Stellar-Swirl or Stellar-Conduct hit, depending on which one is more dominant in the team, and it is a very big portion of her personal damage. This elemental skill is very similar to Linnea's skill, but unlike Linnea's, after using Odette's nuke, her clone will continue doing stellar damage and won't be weakened, so you would always want to use it for extra stellar damage. Her Ascension 1 passive gives her a massive 60% stellar reaction damage after summoning her clone, but when Odette leaves the field, the buff will gradually be given to the rest of the team after 4 seconds, meaning she will have the buff when doing her nuke, and then transfer it to her team after swapping off. This 60% stellar reaction damage, together with the 14% from her stellar passive, plus another 50% she gives from the new set, means she gives the entire team a whopping 124% to all stellar reaction damage, which is completely insane and easily makes her the best stellar support in the game. Her Ascension 4 passive gives Odette up to 30% stellar reaction damage based on her attack, and is maxed at 3000 attack. Even though it sounds high, that's actually not going to be that hard to reach, since you can have characters and sets on the team to help her reach this cap. Her Elemental Burst is a simple attack that only deals regular AoE cryo damage with no stellar damage at all, making it very weak. Additionally, it also buffs Odette's stellar reaction damage by up to 50%, which is very nice, and compensate nicely for the loss of the A1 buff giving to the team instead of her. Even though Odette is very strong, at the end of the day, according to the calculation, she is only doing around 15 to 20% of the team's damage. So the fact that her burst doesn't deal any stellar damage make it so it's not justified building ER on her to have the burst up every rotation. So building her fully offensive and using the burst when it's up every other rotation does seem like the optimal way to play her. Her overworld passive shows Snezhnaya's collectibles on the map, which helps a lot when collecting characters' ascension materials, especially at the release of a new region. For talent priority, focus primarily on her elemental skill, since that's where all of her damage comes from. Then you can level her burst, as it is worth using when it's up, for some more personal damage for Odette, and her normal and charge attacks can be completely ignored. For rotations, swapping to her after you set up the other buffs from the team, like Alyosha or C1 Yae, would ensure you are getting the most damage out of Odette's nuke, which is very strong. Then on Odette, start with her burst if it's up, to get even more buffing to her personal damage, and then use her skill twice to unleash her nuke. Then just swap to your main Stellar-Conduct or Stellar-Swirl carry. When it comes to her personal damage, her signature weapon is her best in slot, giving 674 base attack and 22% crit rate. Its effect gives 8% attack after hitting an enemy with an elemental skill, and can stack 3 times, for a total of 24%. Additionally, after reaching 3 stacks, it also gives 40% crit damage to stellar reaction damage, and restores 4 energy every 3.5 seconds, which is around 20 energy in a 20-second rotation. The amount of stats this weapon gives is honestly crazy, and it can also be a great option for other characters who rely on their skill damage, even outside of stellar reaction teams. The issue is that Odette only contributes around 15 to 20% of the team's total damage, while her main contribution comes from buffing the team, which this weapon does not provide. So despite the amount of stats it gives, it is not as impactful for her as it might initially seem. Thankfully, there are a lot of other great alternatives, including any offensive crit or attack sword you have, especially ones that provide crit, attack or elemental mastery. Remember that the stellar reaction damage she deals does not scale from talent or elemental damage buffs, so weapons that increase skill or elemental damage will not do much for her. We are also getting a new signature 5-star weapon for the Traveler, with an insanely packed and powerful effect that appears to be their true best in slot across all elemental playstyles, not just the new Cryo one. This is extremely exciting, as it appears we will receive this weapon for free together with its refinements, which makes it pretty crazy. The issue is that its effect will only work when equipped by the Traveler, so if you plan to play him, definitely give it to him. But if not, even as a solid 5-star stat stick with no usable effect, it could still be a great option for Odette or another DPS. We are also getting a new lineup of Battle Pass weapons, which are looking very strong, especially if you regularly buy the Battle Pass and can eventually reach R5. The new Battle Pass sword can provide Odette with a very nice crit stat stick. Unfortunately, even though its effect gives a large attack buff, it only works for on-field characters, so it will not really help Odette. For free-to-play players, we are also getting a new lineup of craftable weapons, as we do with every region, and they are looking very strong as well. The craftable sword gives a very nice amount of elemental mastery, attack and stellar reaction damage, especially at R5, which would make it her overall best free-to-play option and even be competitive with some 5 stars. The issue is that it requires triggering a reaction to activate the effect. That sounds simple, but in a team with 3 cryo characters, the aura on the enemy will usually remain cryo, preventing her from triggering reactions herself. Depending on your team and the order you play your rotations, this can make the weapon a bit unreliable, but if you have at least 2 electro appliers on the team, or start your rotation with an electro character and swap to Odette right after, the weapon should work properly. If not, then going for the next best option, which is the finale of the deep, may be the more reliable choice. Dark Iron Sword is also great, as it has been adjusted to give attack when a stellar reaction is triggered, but it suffers from the same reliability issue of requiring Odette to trigger the reaction herself. Harbinger of Dawn can also be a nice crit option for her, but because of its very low attack, it can make reaching the 2000 attack for her team buff more difficult to achieve. Now, as we said, even though she deals good damage and offensive weapons are generally best for her personal performance, she only contributes around 15 to 20% of the team's total damage. Because of that, giving her more supportive weapons that improve the whole team, such as Freedom Sworn, Xiphos Moonlight or Favonius Sword, can be very competitive overall. In version 7.0, we are getting 2 new artifact sets, one specifically for Stellar-Swirl DPS and a general one for stellar reaction supports. The first one, for Stellar-Swirl DPS characters, gives 18% attack, 16% crit rate, and 40% Stellar-Swirl damage to the wielder after triggering Stellar-Swirl. This set has the exact same effect as Disenchantment in Deep Shadow, which is designed for Stellar-Conduct, so it will of course be the best in slot for any Animo main or sub DPS that will be able to deal Stellar-Swirl damage in their kit, And no, Cryo characters like Sandrone and Odette can't use it, as even though they can deal Stellar Swirl damage, they still can't activate the effect, as only an Animo character can trigger the swirl reaction. When it comes to Odette, the second set for stellar reaction supports is her signature and best set. It gives her up to 30% attack when triggering a stellar reaction or dealing stellar reaction damage, which her elemental skill will consistently do. It also provides a team-wide buff of 50% stellar reaction damage, which is extremely strong. In any stellar team, you will always want someone to hold this set, and it is highly recommended for Odette to be the one using it. However, if another character on the team is already holding it, she does have other options. She can use Tenacity of the Millilith to provide a solid attack buff to the team. Lastly, if you know you're only going to play her in a Stellar Conduct team, you can use Disenchantment in Deep Shadow for her personal Stellar Conduct damage. For main stats, go with attack on both the Sands and Goblet to give her as much attack as possible for her Stellar and Ascension 4 passive buffs. For the circlet, use crit rate or crit damage to maintain a good 1:2 ratio. However, if you are using a crit rate weapon together with the Disenchantment in Deep Shadow set, keep in mind that she will likely also have the Cryo Resonance active on the team. Altogether, this gives her a large amount of crit rate, so in that case, you may want to use a crit damage circlet. For substats, focus on crit rate and crit damage, followed by attack percent and flat attack, aiming for around 3000 attack to max her Stellar and Ascension 4 passive buffs. After that, Elemental Mastery is also great. Some energy recharge can also be useful, as I would use her burst whenever it is available, but it is not a stat worth actively chasing. Odette is obviously designed to be played and perform best in stellar reaction teams. Similar to Colombina, she will be one of the best in-slot options for these teams, making her versatility and longevity very good. For Stellar Conduct, the best team core would be a dedicated Stellar Conduct DPS, alongside Yae Miko and Odette. The last slot can honestly be any of the many great Cryo, Electro or General supports, and the team's damage would still reach the top 5 strongest teams in the game. Even before we dive into the dedicated DPS characters, pairing Odette with Yae Miko, who is currently considered the dedicated Stellar Conduct support, both are giving so much buffing to each other and the rest of the team, while also dealing so much damage and reaching around 50% of the team's total output, which is what makes Stellar Conduct teams so strong in the meta right now. Even though Yae deals more damage, Odette provides so much buffing to the team that they both contribute around the same amount to the team's overall damage, and not having one or the other will impact the team's damage dramatically. And like the Inefa Colombina core, the Yae Odette core is also so strong that it can carry your team through the Stellar Conduct enemies, even if you don't have a dedicated Stellar Conduct DPS. Now, when we look at the dedicated Stellar Conduct DPS characters, the strongest one would be Sandrone's team alongside C1 Yae Miko, Odette, and C6 Qiqi, reaching above 200,000 team DPS, and officially putting Sandrone far above Zibai as the new strongest DPS in the game. Of course, I'm aware that not everyone was fortunate, or in this case unfortunate enough, to lose the 50-50 to Qiqi enough times to get her to C6. In that case, using C6 Alyosha would give you the next best numbers at around 195,000 team DPS, which is still far above Zibai. But let's face it, getting C6 Alyosha on his first banner is not something most of us will be able to do, and below C6, the team's damage falls hard by around 25,000 team DPS. Even though these are still very high numbers, you can be happy knowing that using someone like Escoffier or the free C0 Qiqi is still only slightly below C6 Alyosha and would still keep Sandrone as the strongest DPS in the game. Now, if you don't have Sandrone, thankfully unlike in Node Cry, where you had to pull for the new 5-star DPS, this time Hoyo was very generous and gave us a great variety of options, both old and new, to deal with the Stellar Conduct enemies coming in Snezhnaya. Both Wriothesley and Cyno, who recently received buffs, no longer need to rely on Sandrone to enable the Stellar Conduct reaction in their teams, as Odette will be the one enabling it. Because of that, for Wriothesley and Cyno mains, I would consider Odette to be even more valuable than Yae. Both of their teams are now reaching around 165,000 team DPS, which is a massive win, and actually makes them part of the top 5 strongest DPS characters in the game, which you have to give Hoyo credit for. We are also getting the Cryo Traveler, who appears to have 2 different playstyles. He can be played as another Stellar Conduct main DPS, and thanks to how strong the Yae and Odette core is, his team will likely deal some serious damage as well, especially with his amazing new signature weapon. For his other playstyle, he can be used as a Stellar-Swirl sub-DPS, which together with Odette can be used to support the new Stellar-Swirl DPS characters we already have or are going to get. In version 7.0, Sandrone is also receiving Stellar-Swirl scalings in her kit, which will allow allow her to deal Stellar-Swirl damage depending on which stellar reaction is more dominant in the team. Unfortunately, she can't use the new Stellar-Swirl set, as it requires the wielder to trigger the Stellar-Swirl reaction, and only an Animo character can do that. So it does seem like Stellar-Conduct will remain her main playstyle, which is a miss, as it could have added some versatility to her kit. There is also Mizuki, who has recently been buffed and can be played as a very strong Stellar-Swirl DPS, even though I would not count on a standard 5-star reaching the same numbers that the limited 5-stars Wriothesley and Cyno have reached. It does look like Xiao and Wanderer will be the ones who receive the full buff treatment, and I can see them reaching Wriothesley and Cyno's level if Hoyo plans on doing the same thing with them. And of course, we have the upcoming Vesna, who wields a Stellar-Swirl vision, and will probably be one of the strongest Stellar-Swirl units in the game. But no matter which other Stellar-Swirl or Stellar-Conduct units come out, we can already confidently predict that Odette will remain a best-in-slot option for any Stellar reaction units released in the near future. Now let's quickly break down her constellations to see if they are worth investing in compared to her signature. C1 adds another AoE cryo hit to her big nuke, dealing Stellar-Conduct or Stellar-Swirl damage equal to 300 or 400% of Odette's attack. It also enhances her A1 passive, giving an additional 30% for a total of 90% stellar reaction damage, while also transferring the buff to the team faster. C2 enhances her A1 passive to also give 42% attack and reduces nearby enemies cryo and electro or animo res by 20% depending on the team. Strengthen both her personal damage and the team buffing. Together with C1, it provides around a 35% team's damage increase, which is massive. C3 gives additional levels to her elemental skill, which is a nice improvement to her personal damage. C4 makes her burst also give the team 50% stellar reaction damage, making it worth building enough ER to use every rotation. It also triggers a coordinated AoE cryo attack every 3.5 seconds when a teammate deals stellar reaction damage, making this a very strong constellation. C5 gives additional levels to her elemental burst, which thanks to her C4 now giving the buff to the rest of the team, does make it a nice improvement. C6 allows her A1 passive to remain active for both Odette and the team at the same time, significantly improving her personal damage. It also elevates stellar reaction damage by 20% for Odette and 25% for the team. Odette is already best in slot at C0 to all the stellar teams, but if you want to invest, her C1 and especially C2 are much better investments than her signature. Her weapon only adds around 6% of the team's damage, while C1 and C2 can provide up to 35% and also help you get Alyosha constellations. They also offer a much better value than going for Sandrones or other Stellar DPS early constellations, and will improve every future stellar reaction team. Odette is looking to be one of the strongest and most valuable supports in the game, and her teams are also looking to be the strongest teams in the meta. Her versatility in being a best-in-slot option on every stellar team, and the fact that she is being released so early in the region only increase her value, as it will continue to go up more and more as we dive deeper into Snezhnaya and get more stellar units, as well as enemies. If you do have Sandrone, I would say Yae is the more important pull, but Odette is honestly right there in terms of what she contributes to the team. And if you play Wriothesley or Cyno, she is pretty much a must pull and definitely worth more than Yae. And even if you are just hyped for Stellar-Swirl, I would highly recommend her even though the units haven't come out yet, as she will surely be best in slot in their teams. I would only say not to get her if you really don't care about the new units and don't plan to invest in stellar reactions. But even then, I would still recommend her to you, just so you have a unit who will work in all the stellar teams and help you deal with the upcoming enemies, even if you don't plan on getting anyone else. So yeah, in my opinion, given that you would invest in stellar teams in any shape or form, she will probably bring you the most overall value for your primo gems.
And that's a wrap. If this video helped you in any way, consider giving it a like and subscribe for more filter guides. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!